It's literally called Kettlebell Queen Crown. It's meant for us. Let's go. Like, let's claim the crown. Get in, losers. We're going lifting. Oh my gosh, I have never felt more powerful as a woman than I have when I finally claimed strong over skinny. And it was the kettlebell that, was the modality that did that for me. I think there's a lot of women who find strength and power in something like a barbell. And I love seeing that. For me, it was the kettlebell. I think when it comes to the kettlebell, the entry is less intimidating than the barbell. I get that weights in general can be intimidating, but you don't have to set up a barbell. You don't have to learn how to use, clips or a rack or anything. It's easier to walk into. And oh my gosh, you just feel so strong, so powerful. And the cool thing about kettlebell, especially if you're like one of those girlies who likes like an endorphin high, you can do that with the kettlebell. When you learn how to swing it, when you learn how to snatch it, if you like enjoy something like a runner's high, you can get that here, but it can be even more powerful. I don't know if you've heard me talk about the chakras, but I think there's something to be said about when you are doing these exercises where we are just in a constant state of moving, starting all the way at the bottom, thrusting our hips. We are starting to shake up and wake up energy all the way, starting at the root. And when we're in this repetitious state, and then we're doing something like a snatch where our arms are then opening up our chest at the top, it is a very exciting, powerful, energetic experience if you learn how to do it right. It's a way that I've been able to connect to my body unlike anything else. And, I know Pilates is something that a lot of women are super into. Listen, if you are into Pilates because you want to work out lying flat on your back, kettlebells is not going to be your thing. You have to be very active, and that there's no shade in saying, if that's why you enjoy Pilates, don't come to kettlebell. But I think where there is a connection between Pilates and kettlebell is, when you are doing something like reformer work, there's a big connection to alignment and thinking about the core. And you absolutely get that with kettlebells, especially as, you're learning how to do it the right way. There's people who look really ridiculous swinging kettlebells around. I actually have a fair amount of Pilates instructors who train with me because they can see there's a connection, but there's also a disconnect. There's something that you get out of kettlebell training that you just can't get out of Pilates. And a large part of that is, if you want to pack on muscle, you want to build muscle, you want to build strength. And I'm not talking about Pilates strength. I'm talking about strength that we're going to see in real world situations. Not saying that, there's not carryover in Pilates. I'm sure somebody's like, but if you want to be strong enough, you can, lift your partner. If there is an emergency, you can, pick up your kids. You can lift the dog before you go to the vet. That stuff is going to happen from lifting heavier weights. It's not going to happen from being on the reformer, but they can be a really nice complement. There's a lot of women who do both. I don't do both, but there's a lot of women who do both. And I think that is really cool and special. And yeah, it's, kettlebells are that thing that I don't think everybody has necessarily recognized to be like the cool girl thing yet. And if you're one of those people who's like, I don't want to do what everyone else is doing, you were like, I shopped at Lululemon before it became more inclusive. You're like, I went to, the class before anybody really knew who Taryn Toomey was. Like, this is an exclusive place to be. So if you like exclusivity, then you want to get your butt into this type of training. It's always going to be more exclusive because not everybody is going to be willing to learn how to do it correctly. In order to do it correctly, you do need to learn. And for most people, that's going to be hiring a personal trainer, not necessarily forever and always, but for a chunk of time. And then once you get in, if you want to go to something like an app or, just following a spreadsheet, you can. But because most people aren't going to want to take the time to invest in learning the skill, it's always going to be like an exclusive thing. And if that's something that, sparks your interest, like get your butt in here. In terms of just like a Pilates build and a kettlebell build, they can look pretty similar, but you will be a heck of a lot stronger in real world situations with kettlebell strength over just focusing in on, Pilates strength. Something that I think has become a really big message in our community, especially with seeing more women's strength training via TikTok and Instagram. We are seeing a lot from Dr. Gabrielle Lyons at this point in time in terms of really preaching the message of muscle for longevity and overall health. Kettlebells is going to be that thing that will work for so many of the girlies out there who are just like, I'm interested in strength training. What do I do? And I can't wait for that flood to really happen. Even just thinking about kettlebells in general, hardstyle kettlebell technique, which is the way I practice kettlebells, it only came over to the US in like a mainstream way in the early 2000s. I'm thinking to myself, I know the date. I ended up doing an interview with John Duquesne a few years ago, and he's the man who kind of brought spotlight to Pavel, who is kind of like the father of the hardstyle kettlebell community in the US. It was either the early 2000s or 2010s. I think it's the 2000s, but I do need to be fact checked on that. But it really hasn't been the super mainstream thing in the US until recently, whereas things like, bodybuilding, not saying that's been around forever, but it's definitely been more of a mainstream thing in comparison to the time that we've had more information out and about hardstyle kettlebell technique. I think this will be something that the women who take the time to like learn how to do it, they're never going to go back. They're going to love this because they're going to see, wow, I can get this really powerful, strong physique. I can have muscle on my body, but I can also be really freaking mobile. This is cool. This is powerful. It makes me feel dangerous. You want to know why I feel really dangerous with the kettlebell? It's not just the strength in and of itself, but a lot of people underestimate what I can do because my muscle is, it's not to say I don't have muscle, but I feel like sometimes when you see like, it's very much a sleeper build. And to an extent, yeah, it's genetics, but I see a lot of other women in this community where they train this way and they're dialed in with their nutrition. Because what would be a lie for me to say is just because you start working with kettlebells, you're going to look just like me. I look the way I look. Genetics. It's not just the kettlebell, it's the program design that I follow to look this way and the nutrition. All of that is what's giving me the look I have. So it's not kettlebells alone, but if you do start training with kettlebells and you follow program designs to help you build muscle and strength and power and endurance and, different seasons, different phases, and you dial in with your nutrition, yeah, you can get this like really freaking hot, defined, strong body that is kind of unassuming. It's funny, like I haven't done this. There's a part of me that like really just wants to go into a gym one day and like go up to a dude and be like, hey, can you get this over your head? You can get it over your head however you want to like a 32 kilo kettlebell and just see what that looks like. And then, whip it out and rock it out. Cause it's not so much to be like, anything you can do, I can do better. But I think to an extent, women have just kind of been underestimated. I think we've been erased from a lot of history. Something I haven't talked about on the podcast yet, but one of my favorite stories is tied into Lilith. And I don't know if you know this, but if you know who Adam and Eve are, Lilith was Adam's wife before Eve, and she left. So I think to an extent, it's just kind of, you know, a desire to be like, hey, I'm here. I'm representing the women and we are fucking strong. Do not underestimate us. And it's cool. Like we're seeing that in a lot of different areas throughout culture and society right now, where there are more women who are, you know, in these positions, in these roles where it's like, look at us, look at how powerful we are. You're doing it. I'm doing it too. And I'm bleeding. You're doing this. I'm doing it too. And I have a high heel on. You're doing this. I'm doing this too. And I just gave birth. It's really powerful. And I think, especially at this point in time in the US, where we're seeing women being stripped away of power, not just the US, throughout the world, we're in a weird place where I don't know where, you know, some countries are going to be in the next 5 to 10 years. But I do know this: lifting weights has given me a fire. It's almost like this feline, like this jungle cat that lives inside of me. At one point in time, it was a dragon. That's why I have a dragon tattoo. But more so recently, it's this like jaguar that lives inside of me. And it feels good when the jaguar comes out. And the only way I've had her come out is doing the practice of my kettlebell training. And it's been cool to see how that then floods into other areas of my life. I mean, before I started lifting, I didn't really know what was going to happen to my life. I had like an idea. Growing up, I thought I was going to be on Broadway. And then I realized that's probably not going to be it. And then I remember at one point I met my husband and we were talking about, you know, what our future was going to look like. And I really just didn't know what was going to happen. And I was like, well, you know, maybe I'm going to do what my mom did. And my mom did something incredible. My mom was a mom. And I think anybody who chooses that path, it's a great path to choose. But for me, when I started lifting, I realized, you know, maybe I can do some things that I never thought were possible for me. And, you know, some things that I've done up until this point in time is I wrote a book. I wrote a book called Kettlebell Catalyst. I beat a Guinness World Record. I came out with a supplement. It's like doing all these things that I never thought, you know, little old me would be able to do. And it's powerful. It's empowering. And I would love to see more women getting into this space to realize, wow, I can get, you know, the 12-kilo kettlebell over my head. I wonder if I can get the 16. I can do that. I wonder what else I can do. And it just having this like trickle effect to other areas of their life. Kettlebells should absolutely be the next staple for the girls. I know not every girly is going to pick it, but the ones who do, I'm excited to see you enter the kettlebell queendom and wear your crown with pride. And if you ever encounter me, I can't wait to cheer you on and see what happens next for you. Because I guarantee when you enter this space and, you know, you learn how we do this stuff, you're going to feel like fucking royalty. Thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. Make sure you give us a follow so you never miss an episode.